Riley stepped off the small shuttle onto the soft, mossy ground of Arcana. The air smelled of wet earth and strange flowers that glowed faintly in the dim light. Tall, twisted pillars of crystal jutted from the ground like silent sentinels. Each crystal pulsed with a gentle blue light, as if breathing with the planet itself. Riley's boots sank slightly into the damp moss. She felt a thrill of excitement. This was her first mission to a new world. She carried a light pack on her back. Inside were supplies, recording devices, and a few simple gifts meant for friendly contact. Riley checked her scanner. It showed life signs ahead, small and clustered. She smiled and took a slow, careful step forward. Her heart beat fast, but she kept her voice low and calm as she walked. She noticed small footprints in the moss. They were shaped like 3 tiny toes. Riley crouched to study them. The prints wove between the glowing flowers toward a cluster of crystal pillars. Followed quietly, moving with respect. She did not want to startle whoever lived here. Through a gap in the crystals, she saw movement. A small figure crouched behind a luminous fern. The creature looked no taller than half a meter. Its skin was smooth and pale green. 2 large eyes, the color of soft jade, watched her with wide wonder. Slender limbs ended in tiny hands with 3 delicate fingers. Riley realized this was the alien child she had read about in reports. The child's hair, if it could be called that, was a thin curtain of silvery threads that floated around its head like a halo. It wore a simple garment made from woven plant fibers. The garment covered its torso, but left its slender arms free. The child held a small stone, rough and round. It peered at Riley with an open, trusting look. Riley knelt at a safe distance. She raised her hand slowly, palm open. "Hello," she said softly. The word sounded strange in her own ears, but honest. The child tilted its head. It did not flee. Instead, it seemed curious. Riley relaxed her shoulders. From her pack, she gently pulled out the spinning top. It was bright red and yellow, made of human metal and plastic. She had chosen it carefully. Spinning toys had brought laughter to children on other worlds before. She hoped this gift would bridge the gap between species. She set the top on a flat stone. With a gentle twist, she wound it and released. The toy world in a blur of color. The humming sound was soft but musical. The child clapped its hands. In delight, its eyes sparkled. Riley allowed herself a small smile. The top spun faster, then slowed, then stopped. The child held out its hands. Riley picked up the toy and placed it in the child's tiny palms. The creature's fingers closed. Carefully around it, pressed the button on top, and the toy started spinning again between its hands. The child laughed, a clear, light sound that echoed among the crystal pillars. Riley watched in wonder. She recorded the moment on her holographic recorder, but her eyes were on the child, as she had dreamed of this first contact. Now it happened. And it was more beautiful than she imagined. Suddenly, footsteps crunched on the moss behind Riley. The child froze and looked back. Riley sensed someone tall approaching. She turned and saw a figure emerging from the shadows. It was the child's mother. The mother stood at least 2 meters tall. Her skin was the same pale green as the child's. She wore a flowing robe of woven fiber that shimmered with hints of blue and purple. Long hair-like tendrils fell down her back, glowing faintly at their tips. Her eyes were large and wise. She studied Riley and the child with a calm intensity. The child let the toy drop to the ground and ran to its mother. It buried its face against her leg. The mother bent down, lifting the child into her arms. The toy rolled away, forgotten for a moment. Riley stood very still. She offered a quiet greeting in her softest voice. "I did not mean to scare you. I only wanted to share a gift." She kept her hands visible, empty of weapons. The mother's eyes remained on the toy, then shifted to Riley. She spoke in her native tongue, a melody of soft clicks and flowing tones. Riley did not understand the words. She sensed the mother's voice held caution and concern. Riley raised a hand over her heart, a human gesture for sincerity. Then she pointed at the toy and made a gentle spinning motion with her fingers. The mother's gaze softened slightly. She set her daughter on the ground, keeping her close. Riley knelt a short distance away. She reached into her pack and took out a small bowl of purified water. Water was a gift of life. She placed the bowl on a flat stone and stepped back. The water glowed faintly in the crystal light. The mother watched the bowl. She spoke again in her language. The child pointed at the water and then at Riley. The mother paused, then slowly reached out. She lifted the bowl and examined the water. She set it back down, nodding once. Then she looked at Riley with calm acceptance. Riley gently mimed drinking the water, then offered the bowl to the mother. The mother lifted the bowl and drank. Riley bowed her head in respect. The mother returned. The gesture, the child, now relaxed, picked up the spinning top again. It wound the toy and set it spinning. The mother and Riley watched together as the top danced in circles. The child laughed and clapped. In that moment, Riley felt a bridge form between her and the alien family. She realized that simple acts of kindness could overcome fear and mistrust. This was only the beginning of her journey on Arcana, but her heart swelled with hope. A new chapter in human-alien friendship had begun. Riley woke before dawn, the soft glow of Arconan crystals lighting the small clearing where she and the alien mother and child had met. The air was cool and fragrant, filled with the scent of moss and distant flowers. She stretched and checked her pack, making sure her recorder and supplies were ready. Today, she hoped to learn more about the alien family's life and culture. As Riley stepped forward, the mother appeared, her flowing robe trailing on the ground. Isley in one arm, and beckoned Riley to follow. The child clung to her mother's shoulder, gripping the spinning top from yesterday. Riley smiled and waved, then followed as they moved between crystal pillars that glowed with pale blue light. They walked in silence at first. Riley noticed carved stones along the path, simple shapes of leaves and stars, etched with careful lines. She carried a small translator device, but she decided to wait until she saw how the mother spoke. Soon they emerged into a clearing where other tall figures stood. These were the child's relatives, cousins, aunts, and uncles gathered around a low domed structure made of woven fibers and living vines. The whole building pulsed gently as if it breathed. The mother set the child down. The little girl ran straight to a circle of colored stones in the center of the group. She dropped the spinning top and began to draw shapes in the soft moss with a curved stick. Riley knelt at the edge of the circle and watched. The shapes were symbols, simple loops and lines that formed patterns like waves and spirals. One of the tall figures, a man with eyes like polished jade, approached Riley. Riley offered her hand, and he touched it lightly, as if checking her warmth. Then he spoke in a calm voice, soft clicks and gentle tones that the translator rendered as, "Guest from the sky, you share water and play. What do you seek?" Riley bowed slightly. She tapped her own chest and said, "I am Riley. I seek friendship. Want to learn your ways and share mine." Translator repeated her words in alien speech. The man listened, then turned to the mother. She nodded, and he spoke again. "We welcome you. Stay beside us. Learn our song." A soft hum rose from the group. At first, Riley thought it was wind in the crystals, but she realized it was the people themselves. They gently hummed, each voice blending into a single melody. The child joined too, her small voice bright among the deeper tones. Riley sat and closed her eyes, letting the song wash over her. It felt like warm water, calm and alive. When the song ended, the man guided Riley to the domed home. Inside, walls of woven vine held bright bioluminescent moss. The floor was soft earth covered in moss and smooth stones. The air was warm and gentle. Riley noticed a low bench made of living wood, curved to cradle the body. She sat, careful not to disturb the moss. The mother and child sat beside her. The man returned with a shallow bowl filled with glowing fruit. Each piece was the size of a human fist, pale green with a hint of blue light beneath the skin. He offered one to Riley. She took it and smelled. A sweet, mild scent. She bit gently. Juice dribbled down her chin, sweet and fresh. She chewed slowly, savoring the taste. The translator interpreted, "This fruit is life gift. We share it to show trust. Riley nodded, offering thanks. She offered the man a small packet of dried fruit from her pack. He tasted it with curiosity, then closed his eyes in pleasure. The child giggled. Riley laughed too. The simple exchange of food built a bridge of trust. After eating, the man led Riley outside again. The morning sun had risen, casting pale light through the crystal pillars. He pointed to a circle of stones and made a motion with his arms, rising like branches. Riley mimed the motion, and the child twirled, laughing. Then the man clapped his hands, and the child ran toward a grove of glowing ferns. Riley followed. The grove hid many secrets, small pools of clear water, stones etched with symbols, and plants that shifted color when touched. The man showed Riley how to gently stroke a fern to make it glow brighter. She watched in wonder as the leaves lit up under her fingers. Then the mother motioned to Riley to kneel beside a large, flat stone. She placed her daughter's hand in Riley's and guided her to press the two hands onto the stone. The stone glowed where their hands touched, forming a bright symbol, a spiral within a circle. The translator spoke. This is bond sign. When two hearts touch earth together, we share respect and promise to protect. Riley felt emotion well in her chest. She pressed her hand more firmly and whispered, I promise friendship. The stone glowed even brighter, then faded slowly. The child beamed at Riley. The mother's eyes glistened with what Riley thought was pride. As the afternoon sun climbed, Riley and the family returned to the clearing. Others from nearby homes had arrived. Small children peeked from behind. Vine's elders sat on benches of living wood. Riley realized she was at the center of a small village built among the crystal pillars. The man who spoke earlier introduced himself as Shara, elder of this clan. He gestured to Riley and then to the mother, who the translator named Mara, and the child, whose name was Luma. Riley repeated each name slowly until she felt comfortable. Luma ran to a low platform and began to dance. Her arms moved like flowing streams, and her hair like tendrils hovered around her head. Riley watched as Mara hummed a rhythmic tune, and others joined. The dance felt like a story, the telling of water journeys, of seeds growing, of planets turning in the dark dot. Riley tapped her foot and gently moved her arms. Shara laughed and translated, You have rhythm, guest. You join our story. With that, Riley rose and danced with them. She moved simply, matching Luma's steps and Mara's calm motions. The villagers smiled and clapped. By the end, Riley felt part of their tale, no longer an outsider but a friend. When the dance ended, children brought small clay pots of bright liquid. The translator said it was healing drink, made from roots and flowers. Riley drank, feeling warmth spread through her chest and arms. She smiled and bowed to Mara and Shara in gratitude. As dusk fell, the crystal pillars glowed more brightly, illuminating the village in soft blue light. Riley sat with Mara at the edge of a shallow pool. The water reflected the crystals above. Luma played at their feet, spinning the red and jello top and watching it whirl in the water. Riley spoke softly. Thank you for showing me your world. Mara placed a gentle hand on Riley's shoulder, then touched her own heart. She made the spinning motion with her hand, meaning friendship.
Ow.
Riley touched her own heart and spun her finger. They both smiled. Riley realized that she had grown in a single day from explorer to friend. She had shared water, food, song, dance, and laughter. She had learned their bond sign and broken bread with them. She felt a warm hope that this friendship would grow. As stars appeared in the sky above Arcana, Riley prepared to rest. She set up her small camp beside the village, careful to stay off the moss. Luma crawled into her mother's arms, yawning. Mara hummed a soft lullaby that made Riley's eyelids heavy. Lying under the glowing crystals, Riley thought of the journey ahead. She would study this planet and share her findings with humanity. But more important, she would honor the friendship she had formed with Mara and Luma. She drifted to sleep with a smile, ready for tomorrow's discoveries and adventures in a world that was no longer strange, but home. Riley woke to the gentle hum of the crystal pillars. The soft blue light washed over her camp. She stretched and listened. Nearby, Luma slept in Mara's arms. Riley gathered her recorder and notebook. Today she planned to visit the river that ran through the village. She had seen it from afar yesterday. It sparkled like liquid light. She hoped to learn how the clan used the water in their daily life. Breaking camp was quick. Mara stood and offered Riley a woven cloak of light fibers. It fit over Riley's shoulders and kept her warm. Luma reached out and touched the cloak. Riley smiled and patted her head. Then the three walked toward the river. They passed glowing ferns that shivered in the breeze. Deer-like creatures with crystal horns peeked from behind trees. Riley paused to observe them. Mara pointed and whispered a name in her language. Riley nodded and repeated the sound, careful. To mimic its soft clicks, at the riverbank, water rushed over smooth stones. It sang a gentle song. Riley knelt and scooped water in her hand. She drank, feeling coolness spread through her throat. Mira watched approvingly. Luma touched the water with her finger, then sipped from her mother's hand. Riley set down her recorder and watched. The river's flow carried tiny lights bioluminescent, plankton that glowed like stars beneath the surface. Mara traced shapes in the soft mud with a stick. Riley recognized the bond sign from yesterday. Then Mara made new symbols, wavy lines, and circles. The translator device hummed and offered, "River story, water journey from sky to sea." Riley's eyes lit. She tapped her chest and said, "Thank you for sharing." The device repeated her words. Mara smiled and pointed downstream. She spoke again. "Story place." They followed the river for a short walk. Trees arched overhead, their branches woven together like a living roof. Light filtered through leaves that glowed pale green. Tiny fish darted near the river's edge. Riley knelt and held out her hand. A bold fish swam close, touching her palm. She laughed. Luma giggled and reached into the water. Mara guided her hand so she would not slip. The child's laughter echoed through the grove. Soon they arrived at a clearing. The river widened here into a shallow pool. Stones formed natural steps into the water. Floats of moss drifted on the surface. At the far end, a carved stone spout brought water from the pool into a channel. Elders stood nearby, filling clay pots and baskets. Riley watched as an old woman turned the spout with a gentle push. Water flowed into woven baskets of moss. The elder lifted the basket and poured water into a large basin made of living wood. Riley approached carefully. Shara appeared beside her. He spoke softly. "This is Water Maker. You harvest water for season." He pointed to a series of channels leading away from the pool. Each channel fed gardens of glowing plants. Riley knelt beside a garden bed. She saw flowers that changed color when water touched them. She touched a flower petal and it glowed bright pink. Mara smiled and tapped the flower, then tapped Riley's hand, the translator said. "Plant thanks guest." Water brings life. The elder gathered the clan in a circle. She held a bowl of fine sand mixed with crushed crystals. With her finger, she drew a map in the sand. River, village, fields, crystal. Pillars. Riley watched, fascinated. The elder then offered the bowl to Riley. She dipped her finger and traced her own mark on the map. The clan nodded. The translator said, "You learn. You belong." Riley felt warmth in her chest. She bowed her head. In thanks, as the sun climbed, Riley and the family left the water maker. They carried clay pots of fresh water and baskets of glowing flowers. Mara led Riley to a high ledge overlooking the river valley. From this view, Riley saw fields of crystals and gardens woven between trees. On the mist-shrouded mountains rose like giants. Riley raised her arm and pointed to the mountains. Mara nodded and spoke. "We travel there soon. Stone Mountain holds wisdom." Riley's heart raced. She realized her journey would go beyond village life and into the wild heart of Arcana. Back. In the village clearing, the clan prepared a meal. Large leaves served as plates. Bowls of glowing fruit and roasted root cakes filled the air with sweet aroma. Riley sat beside Mara and Luma. Luma offered Riley a small piece of root cake. Riley tasted it and smiled. The clan hummed a meal song. Riley joined with soft humming. Each bite felt like sharing a part of their world. She felt honored to be invited. As dusk approached, Riley helped carry dishes to a storage area of woven branches. Luma leaped from Riley's arms and ran to play. With other children, Riley watched them chase fireflies that glowed blue in the growing night. She turned to Mara. In simple words, she said, "Today you showed me your water song. I will remember." Mara touched Riley's hand and spoke. "Guest Riley, friend Riley, clan shares home." Da-da. Riley bowed her head, filled with gratitude. That night, Riley recorded her journal by lantern light. She wrote of river songs, water maker, and value of sharing resources. She thought of the journey to the stone mountain. She felt both excitement and respect. She closed her eyes and remembered Luma's laughter and Mara's gentle smile. Tomorrow, her path would lead into unknown lands. But she knew she would not walk alone. Friendship with the alien clan guided each step, lighting her way in the strange, beautiful world of Arcana. Riley woke before the first light touched the crystals. She dressed quickly and packed her satchel. Inside she placed her recorder, water flask, and a few glowing fruits. Mara stood beside her, holding Luma's hand. Luma yawned and rubbed her, eyes clutching the red and jello spinning top. The sky was still dark, but the crystal pillars glowed softly, lighting their small camp. Shara and 2 other villagers arrived with woven packs and gifts. One carried a bundle of smooth stones, etched with symbols. The other held a long staff topped with a carved spiral. The clan's elders had prepared these as tokens of safe passage. Riley bowed and accepted each gift with gratitude. She felt the weight of responsibility and honor. This journey would take her beyond the safety of the village into the wild. The path began between tall ferns that glowed underfoot. As they walked, Mara pointed at a line of footprints in the moss. They were larger than human boots and led toward the mountain. Riley followed, careful not to disturb them. The footprints seemed fresh. Perhaps another clan member had traveled here recently. The air smelled of rain and stone. Mist curled around the tree trunks like ghosts. After an hour, the forest opened. Onto rolling hills. The grass here was short and soft, dotted with flowers that pulsed gently with light. Luma skipped ahead, chasing a small deer-like creature. It bounded away, its crystal horns clicking softly. Riley smiled, recording every moment. She paused to touch the grass and feel its cool dampness. Then she refilled her flask at a small spring, pouring water into a clay cup. Refreshment tasted. Of earth and sky, they climbed steadily. The hills became rocky slopes, and the mist thickened. Riley held her staff steady. Shara walked beside her, guiding her steps. His years showed in the careful way he chose each path, avoiding loose stones. Mira and Luma followed, their eyes bright with wonder. They reached a ledge where the view opened to a deep valley. Beyond stood the stone mountain, its peak lost in cloud. Veins of crystal ran through its face, sparkling like stars. As they neared the base, the wind grew colder. Riley wrapped the woven cloak tighter around her shoulders. Shara pointed to a narrow cleft in the rock, a natural entrance. He spoke softly, and the translator rendered, "This is mouth of mountain. Inside lies old place." The clan stopped at the cleft's edge. Luma clung to her mother's leg, her eyes wide. Riley knelt to soothe the child, then offered her hand. Luma took it and pressed close. Together, they stepped into the cleft. The light dimmed, and Riley activated her lantern. Its beam cut through the gloom, revealing walls of rough stone and crystal. Water dripped from above, echoing in the hollow. The air was cool and still. They followed a narrow tunnel that sloped downward. Etched into the walls were ancient symbol spirals, waves, and circles. Riley paused to study them. She traced a finger over a spiral, feeling the smooth, worn surface. Shara knelt before a large carving. He placed his staff's spiral end against the carving's center and pressed lightly. The wall shivered, and a hidden panel slid aside with a soft rumble. Behind it lay a small chamber lit by glowing moss. Inside stood a pedestal made of crystal and stone. On the pedestal sat a flat, round disc etched with symbols that matched those on the walls. Riley approached the disc with reverence. She picked it up gently and felt warmth from its center. The symbols glowed faintly under her fingers. Luma gasped and pointed at the disc. In a whisper, Mara said, "Heart of Mountain, memory of elders." Riley held the disc high, and the lantern light caught its glow, filling the chamber with pale blue light. The clan formed a circle around her. Shara spoke words in his language that the translator rendered, "This place holds our story. We honor ancestors and promise to protect world." Riley nodded, understanding the weight of his words. She placed the disc on her recorder pad and began to document its shape and glow. Every symbol mattered. She whispered softly, "I will share your story with others." The clan smiled, their faces serene in the crystal light. They stayed in the chamber, long enough to learn a few of the symbols' meanings. Mara gently guided Riley's hand over each carving and repeated the word. Riley repeated back slowly. She felt the language form on her tongue. Luma pressed her cheek against Riley's knee, listening. The disc's symbols told of the mountains, birth, of the first water, and of the pact between earth and sky. When they finished, Shara pressed his palm to the disc and closed his eyes. Then he touched Riley's shoulder. Translator said, "You are a keeper now. Carry memory." Riley placed the disc carefully in her pack. She felt honor and humility. They exited the chamber and closed the panel behind them. The path out was lit by their lantern and the faint glow of crystal veins outside. The mist had lifted. Sunlight streamed over the valley. She felt a surge of hope. This journey had bonded her to the clan's ancient past and to their future. Together, they climbed back toward the village, carrying knowledge, friendship, and the mountain's heart. Riley knew that the story she shared would change how others saw this world and its people. She knew that this bond, born on a glowing disc in a hidden chamber, would guide her steps forever. Riley carried the crystal disc carefully as she and the clan walked back toward the village. The sun had climbed higher in the sky, and the crystals along the path gleamed like scattered diamonds. Luma skipped ahead, her laughter ringing through the trees. Mara walked beside Riley, pointing out plants and stones along the way. Shara brought up the rear, steady and calm. As they neared the village, children ran to greet them. They held small flowers and stones, gifts for their returning friends. Riley smiled and accepted each gift, placing them gently in her pack. The elders waited at the edge of the village clearing. Their robes shimmered and their eyes held pride. Shara called the clan together. Riley saw the simple benches and the domed gathering place she had entered on her first day. Villagers came from every direction, curious to see the mountain disc. Riley stepped forward and placed the disc on a flat stone in the center of the circle. The disc glowed softly and a hush fell over the watchers. May stood beside Riley and spoke in her melodious tongue. The translator hummed and then said, "The heart of mountain returns. We share memory and promise." The disc's glow brightened for a moment, as if acknowledging the words. Riley felt a warm thrill in her chest. She bowed her head in respect. One elder, tall and silver-haired, stepped forward. He touched the disc and closed his eyes. Then he spoke. "Our ancestors spoke of this day. We thought the mountain's voice lost. Now it speaks through you," guessed Riley. Riley's heart beat fast. She touched the disc and said, "I am honored to carry your story." The elder asked for water. Your young woman brought a bowl of clear river water. She offered it to Riley first. Riley drank, then handed the bowl to the elder. He drank, then poured water around the disc. Villagers watched as the water traced a circle on the stone, blending with the disc's light. Shara guided Riley to stand before the disc and speak of what she had learned. Riley took a deep breath. She said softly, "The disc tells of earth and sky, of water and stone, of duty to protect life. I will share this knowledge with all who listen, so your world is honored and safe." The translator repeated her words. The villagers nodded and hummed in approval. Luma climbed onto the flat stone and took Riley's hand. She pointed to symbols on the disc. Riley followed her finger and touched each symbol. She spoke their names aloud, careful to copy the clicks and tones. The clan repeated after her. roots, streams, mountains, sky. Each word felt alive on her tongue. As the sun dipped low, the clan prepared a celebration. Bundles of glowing flower petals were woven into garlands. Bowls of sweet fruit and roasted roots were set on woven mats. Riley watched as villagers hung garlands from crystal pillars and laid mats around the disc. Children danced in the fading light. Riley joined the dancing. She moved with Luma, spinning and clapping. The clan's song rose around them. It was a melody of wind, water, and stone. Riley hummed along, feeling the music in her bones. She forgot that she was human and they were alien. In that moment, they spoke one language of joy. After the dance, the clan sat around the disc. Elder voices rose in storytelling. They spoke of the first seed planted at the mountain's base. They told of storms that shaped the land and of the first spark of life in the crystal veins. Riley listened, enraptured. She added notes to her recorder, careful not to interrupt. When the stories ended, Shara stood and raised his staff. He tapped the disc gently. Then he turned to Riley and said, "You are now a clan member, friend, keeper. The disc's memory lives in you." Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Riley felt tears of gratitude. She bowed deeply and pressed her hand to her heart. The clan offered Riley a new gift, a small crystal pendant carved in the shape of the mountain. They said it would protect her on future journeys. Riley accepted and tied it around her neck. The crystal glowed softly near her heart. She felt its warmth and promise. Night fell, and the clear sky revealed twin moons over the village. Riley stood outside her small tent, looking at the moon's reflections in a pool of water. She thought of home and her mission. She knew she would tell humanity of Arcana's beauty and wisdom. She knew she would protect this world as she would. Her own inside the tent, Luma slept in Mara's arms. Riley listened to Mara's soft humming. She closed her eyes and remembered the mountain chamber, the river song, and the spinning top. Memories of laughter and song filled her mind. She drifted to sleep with a sense of peace she had never known in the early hours. Riley woke to the first bird-like calls of Arconan dawn. She stepped outside and breathed deeply. The air was cool, and the crystals glowed faintly, she thought. Of the coming day, she would follow the clan beyond the valley, to learn more of their world and to honor the pact she had made. Before leaving, Riley knelt by the disc one last time. She pressed her hand to its surface and whispered, "I will not forget." The disc shimmered in reply. She stood and packed her recorder and supplies. The crystal pendant warmed against her chest. As dawn's light spread across the land, Riley, Mara, Shara, and Luma set out once more. Their path led toward a distant ridge where ancient trees stood like guardians. Riley felt anticipation and determination. She walked beside her new family, ready for the next discovery, ready to carry their story into the stars. Riley rose with the sun again. The crystal forest glowed in soft pink light as she and her friends prepared to leave the valley. Today they would travel to the ridge of ancient trees, where old spirits were said to dwell. Riley checked her pack. The crystal pendant rested near her heart, warm and steady. Luma held her hand, spinning the red and jello top between tiny fingers. Mara smiled and adjusted Luma's cloak of woven fiber. Shara led the way along a narrow path. Moss cushioned each step, and dew glistened on leaf tips. Birds with rainbow feathers darted between branches, calling out in curious tones. Riley paused to record their song on her device. She raised the lantern light to catch their colors, but left it low so as not to startle them. The forest felt alive, each sound a note in a larger melody. After an hour, the path climbed steeply. Riley felt her legs burn but pressed on. Offered his staff, carved with the mountain spiral, and Riley accepted. The weight was comforting. Mara supported Luma on her hip so the child could rest. Luma's eyelids drooped, but she refused to sleep. The adventure was too bright in her mind. They reached the ridge at midday. Wind swept across a grassy plateau dotted with towering trees. Their trunks rose straight and tall, bark smooth and white like pillars of moonlight. The branches formed a high canopy, leaves rustling in soft patterns. At the center of the plateau stood a circle of standing stones. Each stone was tall as a person, and etched with ancient symbols that matched. Those on the mountain disk, Riley approached reverently. She remembered the disk's words, "We honor earth and sky." She touched the nearest stone. It hummed beneath her palm. Mara and Shara joined, placing their hands beside hers. Luma peeked from her mother's side. Riley tapped her chest and mouthed the word "thank you" as the translator repeated aloud. The stones pulsed in response, sending ripples of light across their surfaces. Riley's lantern reflected in the runes, revealing faint glyphs that glowed in sequence. She held her breath. The clan began to hum the ridge song, a low, steady tone that rose and fell like distant thunder. Riley closed her eyes and let the sound wash through her. The song told of the world's shape, of sky's embrace, and earth's strength. It spoke of water's journey from cloud to river, of crystal birth deep in mountain heart, and of the pact made by first ancestors to guard life's balance. As each verse ended, the stones glowed brighter, then dimmed, as if breathing. When the final note faded, a soft wind stirred fallen leaves. The stones stood silent once more. Riley opened her eyes and felt tears. She bowed toward the stones. Mara touched her shoulder. The translator said, "You share our spirit now. You carry our song." Riley nodded, voice catching. She knelt and placed her recorder on the ground. She spoke into it. "Today at the ridge of ancient trees, I stood with friends and heard the song of spirits. I felt the pulse of the world. Beneath these stones, this song will guide me home and remind me of my promise." The translator echoed her words. Luma tugged at Riley's sleeve and pointed to a small pool at the stone's base. Clear water rippled in a stone basin. From the sky shone through leaves and danced on the surface. Luma dipped her finger in and let droplets fall on Riley's hand. Riley smiled and dipped her finger in too, sharing the cold, pure water. She drank, and the freshness filled her chest with calm. Mara took a drop, then let it fall on Luma's head, blessing her. Riley watched the simple act with wonder. She realized the gestures carried deep meaning here. Friendship and trust were built on giving life freely. After a quiet moment, Shara motioned to follow a narrow trail that wound through the trees. They walked single-file branches above, forming a green tunnel. Soft roots curled across the path. And Riley stepped carefully. Birds chirped overhead and small creatures scuttled at the roots. Riley paused to photograph a glowing mushroom the size of her hand. Mara whispered its name. Riley repeated it slowly, savoring the sound. The tunnel opened onto a meadow bathed in late afternoon light. Here, crystals grew in clusters like flowers. Luma ran among them, stopping at each and pressing a hand to feel their smooth facets. Riley knelt beside her and wound the spinning top on a crystal surface. The toy spun faster than ever, humming a bright note that blended with meadow sounds. Luma laughed and clapped. Mayer sat beneath a crystal arch and pointed to the sky. 2 moons rotated slowly, casting pale light. Shara sat beside her and spoke words that translated to, "We are small under sky, but our hearts are vast." Riley sat with them and looked upward. She felt both humble and strong. She tapped her chest and said, "I feel that too." As dusk deepened, the group returned to the village. Lanterns lit the paths, and glowing flowers shone along the edges. Villagers gathered to welcome them, their faces bright with joy. A gentle feast awaited bowls of sweet fruits, roasted roots, and flowing water. Riley joined the circle, tasting each dish and offering small bites to Mira and Shara. They shared laughter and stories of the day. After the meal, Elder Shara rose and lifted his staff. He spoke, "Tonight we rest together. Tomorrow you return to human sky, but a part of you stays here." He held the staff toward Riley. Then Mara and Luma joined, each touching the staff in turn. The translator said, "This staff is bond vessel. It holds our promise. You may carry it to stars." Riley accepted the staff with trembling hands. She placed it beside her pack. Luma hugged Riley's leg. whispering, "Friend." Riley picked up the child and held her close. She kissed Luma's forehead and whispered back, "Friend." Under a sky of crystal moons and distant stars, Riley lay beside her camp. The staff rested at her side, the disc safe in her pack, and the pendant glowing at her heart. She thought of her own world of people who had never heard the Ridge Song, or felt moss underfoot on Arcana. She thought of the promise she made, to share this world's story and guard its beauty. She reached for her recorder and spoke softly. "I am Riley. Carry the song of Ridge, the heart of mountain, and the bond of friendship. I will remember. Every face, every note, every touch of moss and water. I will protect Arcana's spirit." The lantern light flickered, and the crystal canopy whispered overhead, as sleep claimed her. Riley dreamed of dancing with Luma under glowing ferns, of humming with elders by the river, and of the ancient ridge stones singing their song. She dreamed of two worlds connected by a promise, and of the day when humans would know Arcana's name. And she knew that when morning came, she would rise not just as explorer, but as keeper of a story that would shine brighter than any crystal. In the galaxy,